Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the In the Loop podcast. I am your host, Jay Byrne, and I'm just making sure my levels are good here. Okay, we're looking all right. A little loud in my ears. Anyway, how's everybody doing this week? I got a bunch of cool stuff to talk about, actually. We'll start with some just guitar news that I actually, just was looking up just a few minutes ago. I came up with some cool stuff. This is neat. This was an article. This is all, I go guitarworld.com and they have news on guitarworld.com. So that's where I'm finding most of this news if anyone's interested and wants to look up this stuff. There was an article about Randy Rhoads, which was actually kind of neat. And I guess it was an interview with Bob Daisley. He did a long interview, which I actually should check out the interview. The interview looks kind of cool. I think it's like a video interview, actually. And he just started, he was talking a little bit about how Randy Rhoads wrote the first two solo records, Ozzy's first two solo records, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, which are absolute classic albums, of course. And yeah, he just kind of given a little bit more insight into Randy's, what he did, like his style of recording. And he said that, and this has been known before. It's in the document. It's in a documentary about Randy Rhoads, and Ozzy's talked about this before. That Randy Rhoads would go to a new guitar teacher in like every town that they were in, because he just wanted to learn as much as he possibly could learn. So he was learning a lot of classical music, actually. And I guess when they were working on Diary of a Madman, he was working on this piece called Etude, E-T-U-D-E, okay, that his tutor had given him. It's a classical guitar teacher. And basically, he took that piece and he kind of reworked it a little bit, and he turned it into the intro for the song Diary of a Madman. And apparently Ozzy didn't really like Diary of a Madman that much because it was so many changes. He looked at him and said something along the lines of, "What do you think I am, Frank Zappa? Like, this is kind of nuts." But yeah, I mean, that's always been like my favorite song on the Diary of a Madman album. And that whole introduction, the acoustic intro, the classical intro is really cool. And I guess that's this piece called Etude, like reworked a little bit. I've never heard it, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting article. And like I said, there's a, I don't know if there's video of I think so. Yeah, there's a video for the interview as well. But anyway, so I thought that was kind of cool, actually. And what did he say? He says, let's see, this is Bob Daisley talking right now. He said, because it had a lot of time changes and was a bit nuts, we thought it would be great for the title track. But Ozzy didn't like what we'd done. I don't think he understood it musically. I remember his exact words. He said, "Who do you think I am? Frank effing Zappa?" So it's kind of funny, right? That he would say that's what Ozzy said. Of course, that's very, very Ozzy. You can imagine him saying that. It was an ideal title track because it has that air about it being a little bit nuts. It's a good example of Randy's approach to writing and playing. I 100% agree. I think if you're looking for something that's very Randy Rhoads-esque, Diary of a Madman is like the piece that I would actually say, check out that song. If you're wondering why Randy Rhoads was so big a deal, why he was such a big deal guitar player, check out that album, Diary of a Madman, and check out that song specifically. I mean, the first album, Blizzard of Oz, is great too. Of course, it is great. But I mean, but Diary of a Madman, the song Diary of a Madman, is just on a whole other level. It really, I think, kind of started that whole metal and classical thing. I don't really know of too many other artists that were mixing classical music with heavy metal before that album, before that time. I mean, this is like 1981. So yeah, that stuff didn't really happen until later in the 80s or early 80s at least, but after that. So yeah, that's kind of cool. There was another thing here that I thought was actually kind of cool. Quilter. And now I've never actually played a Quilter amp, although I've been very, very interested in them for a while. Quilter has this thing out. It's out now, actually, and it costs $400, $399. It's a pedal amp, is what they're calling it. Latest pedal amp crams classic tones into a single stomp box. Could it be your board's new best friend? It's this blue-looking thing, and it's called Quilter Direct Amp. Okay? Excuse me. And it's really cool because basically what it is it's got 3 preamps with, I guess, IRs, like speaker outs, built into it. It's meant to be a standalone system. It's meant to be like you can plug your guitar into this and plug this straight into the soundboard. And it's for recording and playing live. And it has 3 styles of amps on it. It has a Marshall style, I think Marshall JMP is what they said, kind of. The Vox, like an AC-15, and like a Fender flavor. They didn't really say what the Fender was, but it's like a Fender flavor. And the cab type has closed and open. You can turn the cab sim off and run your own cab sims. It has XLR outs, left and right out. So it is at 100% a direct box. It has legitimate, like balanced, like outputs, like the XLR outs, which is actually really, really cool. Let's see, what else does this say? It says doesn't have a power amp or a speaker, obviously, as it's designed to go directly into mixing desks, headphones, and recording devices. 3 preamps and 3 speaker simulations are on offer, with reverb, gain, limiter, and boost controls, and an augmenting 3-band EQ. I guess it's similar to Quilter has a couple other like preamp style pedals, and I guess that's similar to what those pedals are as well. But it's kind of like a super duper version, you know? Let's see. Of its 3 amp voices, Quilter has channeled the essence of 3 classic amplifier makers, promising Marshall Crunch, Vox Chime, and Fender Warmth in one box. The Marshall amp tone is specifically based on a JMP tube amp, with the Vox simulation striving for AC-15, is what I just said. The Fender mode doesn't specify its source material, but the cab and speaker options help deliver a mix of classic Fender vibes. It can get pretty spanky in closed back mode. I can't talk. Yeah, this is really, really cool. The trio of amps can be paired with the user's choice of Celestion Classic Lead 80, Celestion Vintage 30, and Jensen speaker simulations. That's really cool. I don't know, this is actually really neat. This is something I might actually want to try out at some point in time. It's only $400. It's really not the most expensive thing on the world, and I've been kind of curious about Quilter for a while. So it's called Direct Amp. It's called Quilter Direct Amp, and it is $399.99, and it is currently available. I guess it says available today. I don't know what this article, but this is August 9th. So yeah, this is a couple days ago. That's pretty wild. Let's see. There was one other thing here that I thought was kind of cool too. Electro-Harmonix, they put out a new pedal. The POG, the Electro-Harmonix POG thing, the pitch shift thingy and all that. They have a new version of the POG out, and it's called, here it is, unveils the POG 3, the latest generation of the trailblazing octave pedal beloved by Joe Satriani and Jack White. God, with all new chassis features cribbed from EHX's greatest hits and a $645 price tag. Yikes. That's a little crazy. I mean, I know the POG does a lot of things, but like $645 for one pedal. I don't know. It's I guess if it's what you're interested in. I mean, it's really cool. Looking at a picture of it right here, it's really neat. It has it has -2, -1 plus a fifth, +1 +2. I don't know. Everything has left and right inputs on it. Basically what they did is they put this stuff up there so that you could, like, say you wanted to have like a bass guitar. I was reading the article, and the article said that, let me see if I can get this right. The trademark POG sliders return here, but a new +5th voice has been added, alongside the existing -2 octave, -1 octave, +5th, +1 octave, +20 CT, whatever CT is. In a nod to guitarists and bassists who use the POG to split their signal and mimic an instrument outside their regular range. There are now 3 quarter-inch, 1/4 outputs. It's quarter-inch, right? I think that's what they call it. How you say that? on board, left, right, and a direct out, plus pan controls to split the different octave voices between the stereo outs. So that's cool. So you could plug in, you could have a dry signal going out one way and the octave going out the other, and you could run them to the run one to the, maybe like the soundboard, one to the amp. So that way you could actually have like a bass note playing, like, underneath whatever you were playing. That's actually really cool. If you're just using simple, octave bass there. The pedal can also be used for drop tuning via the warp mode, which allows the players to drop or raise their pitch to any note over a 2-octave span. While there's even a freeze mode for soloing over a pad. Well, yeah, they always have the freeze mode on those. Isn't that kind of like a thing with those, I think? But, yes. Hold on, my leg is weird. Features from EHX All-Powerful Hog also make an appearance, including a gliss mode for synth transitions between chords. Other additions include control for input gain, a master volume, a focus control for +1 octave and +2 octave, plus a multi-mode filter with cue and envelope sweep. This thing's pretty powerful. It's pretty crazy. And there are 100 onboard presets that can be tweaked and saved via an expression pedal. That's really cool. At the time of its launch, Joe Satriani and Jack White were so inspired by the new box, they raced to become the first to use it on record. With the White Stripes Blue Orchid just pipping Satch's Super Colossal to the post. Huh. Interesting. All right, then. $645, including a 9-volt power supply. Well, it better include a 9-volt power supply for $645, right? Jeez, that's insane. But no, that's pretty cool. As far as guitar news, that's the best I've got going on today. But I wanted to talk a little bit about... I had a video that went up last week, and there's a video going up this week, which this podcast will be after it, so you'll have already hopefully seen it, which is about my HXFX, and I'm going to talk about that too. But first, I want to talk about the previous week's video. I want to talk about the Greta Van Fleet concert that I went to, because I made a video about it, and I posted some footage and my own little review of it, but I figured I could, expand on that a little bit more in this podcast. It was a great show. I think Greta Van Fleet gets a bad rap because they're always compared to Led Zeppelin. Now, I get the Led Zeppelin thing. I do, but they do their own thing. Like if you play them and Led Zeppelin, you can hear like how some of the guitar work is copying like more like Jimmy Page's live style than like the recorded style. Like Jake Kiska copies Jimmy Page's live style more than his recorded style. And there is also like the vocals of Josh Kiska, like the singer for Greta Van Fleet. His vocals, his range, he does a lot of Robert Plant-esque things. Kind of copies Robert Plant's vocal style a little bit. However, I honestly think that his voice is better than Robert Plant. I mean, I love Led Zeppelin, don't get me wrong. Led Zeppelin is a huge influence on me. But I do think Josh Kiska's voice, I mean, he does some pretty operatic stuff with his voice sometimes, and I think his voice is a bit more controlled than Robert Plant. Like, his voice is pretty impressive at times, some of the things that he does. Yes, he is copying Robert Plant a lot of the times, but it's pretty darn cool, I think, anyway. It's kind of neat. But, yeah, the show was awesome. They played for like 2 hours plus, and they played everything. They didn't play everything I wanted to hear. My biggest complaint, if I have a critique about the show, it was the encore of the show. I felt like they should have come out and played a little bit more rocking tunes. Like I love, one of my favorite Greta Van Fleet songs is the single that they had for their first album, Anthem of the Peaceful Army, if I can say it right. It was a song called When the Curtain Falls. When the Curtain Falls. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I really like that song. I love the guitar work in that song. I love that song. And they do play it on this tour. They have played it a few times. Well, once from what I could see in the set list, at least. It's not really part of their repertoire as much anymore, it seems like. And honestly, I really think they should have played that at the encore. Instead, they came out and they played a couple of slower songs from the Battle at Garden's Gate. You know, Love Life After Love Over Life. I can't remember the titles of the songs, but and another song from the new album, Star Catcher, which, by the way, has grown on me a lot. After seeing the show, I've actually really gotten into the Starcatcher album a lot, and I really like it, and I get what it's doing now. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Battle at Garden's Gate, but now re-listening to that album, I can see how that's probably that's their COVID album. It's depressing and it's dark, and you can hear it in the lyrics, and it's kind of a bleak look at mankind, that album. And I could kind of see how that came out of the COVID era, because I'm not sure if it was being recorded during COVID or if it was finished by then, but I do know that COVID, like everybody else, it kind of halted their touring and whatnot for a while, because I guess they were going to be going on tour, and I think the album actually was supposed to be coming out, and it got pushed back a little bit. I'm not 100% sure on all that, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I've been listening to them a lot, and I really do like them a lot as one of the more modern bands. And I think if you can get past the Led Zeppelin thing, where it really seems like they're kind of riffing or ripping on Led Zeppelin, and listen to the actual albums in their entirety, and if you see them live, I mean, you see the Zeppelin thing live, but there's a lot more going on there than that. It's not just Led Zeppelin. It's almost like they're taking the best of the late 70s rock and kind of like throwing it all together in a pot and just coming up with stuff. I mean, the show was amazing. It had really good, just the pyrotechnics, and it was just a really cool show. It was a great show, and I wore earplugs so I could actually hear the show, and it sounded pretty darn good from what I could tell with the earplugs that I had. I mean, I had cheap earplugs on, those cheapo orange things, and the bass was really boomy at times, so boomy. There was a few times where the bass was so boomy it was just crunching out, and I don't know if that was just the earplugs or if it sounded like it was coming from the sound system. The bass would get so overwhelming that it would almost just crunch out on the sound system. But I mean, the show sounded great. It was a lot of fun. I haven't been to a concert in years. I mean, because I have my issues with OCD, and I'm a bit of a germaphobe, and the whole idea of being in a room with that many people, past COVID or during COVID I wasn't going to do it. I don't think I was mentally capable of handling that. So yeah, so that, that's cool. But no, the Greta Van Fleet concert was awesome. And I do believe they're a really cool band. And I think Jake Kiska is an impressive guitar player. And I think as he develops over the years, we're going to see a lot of him. He's going to be one of those guitar players that's all over the magazines, all over the guitar videos. He's going to be somebody that somebody to follow and somebody to keep an eye on, because I don't know. I mean, who knows if Greta Van Fleet will last or if they'll break off into other projects. At this point right now, I mean, they've got 3 albums and a collection of EPs out, and they seem to be going pretty strong. And they seem to be a fun bunch of guys. So I hope they continue, and I hope they give us some more cool music, because this last album, Starcatcher, is really cool. Excuse me. Once you get a taste for the vibe of that album and the style of that album, you can't help but love it. So, yeah. All right, so let's see. Let's talk a little bit about. I wanted to also talk about the video that just went up this week, because I did a video about my HX effects, and in the video I talk a lot about this stuff, so there might be a little bit of overlap between the video and this podcast. But I wanted to expand on it a little bit more and to let people know that if you watch that video or you're interested in that video, my intention was not to make this all-encompassing like guide to it. Like I didn't even really talk about snapshots. I didn't mention the word snapshot at all because I don't really know how to use the snapshots on the. I had a Helix LT. I never figured out the snapshots on that. I could do snapshots on the HXFX. I currently don't see any reason for them for me. Maybe at some point I'll need them if I need to, have more presets and break things up a little bit more. But as of right now, just doing everything in straight preset mode where I got you get 9 blocks, and each block represents an effect, pedal, whatever you want to call it. And you can just, you set it up like a pedal board, like a virtual pedal board. And you can assign, and it doesn't have to be in any particular order. I mean, it can go in any order you want. You have 6 assignable foot switches on the HXFX, and you can assign whatever effects you want to those 6 foot switches. And you can plug an expression pedal into it, and you can also have like a wah or like a octave type thing as well. Speaking of Pog, I think they have like a Pog thing kind of built into it. And I've got an expression pedal coming. I haven't really gotten a chance to play with that yet. I should be getting that sometime this week, so that'll be fun to try out. I don't do a lot with wah or anything like that anymore, but it'll be nice to have the option to if I decide to. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I love the thing. I was a huge pedal guy, okay? No, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of analog pedals. For a regular person, I probably owned like 30 to 40 of them over the course of my time of buying and selling pedals. And, I'll buy one, use it for a little while, sell it. I'm always changing up what I want. I'm always coming up with, I want to try this, or I want to do that, or I want to do that. For a person like me, I feel like something like the HXFX is better because it's one cost. You spend like $600 on it. And every now and then it gets updated with new pedals and new effects. And it has a bunch of stuff in there. So if you decide that, I want to try this effect out, go into the HXFX, and I guarantee you can find something that is close to what you're wanting, if not a direct model of the pedal that you want to actually use, that you're interested in using. So that to me, that's kind of, you can't put a price on that. Like that, to be able to do that. And I feel personally, and this is like a hot take, I guess you could say, my hot take on using like an HXFX or a Line 6 Helix or, an HX Stomp. I don't need the amp models. Maybe for recording, it'd be nice to have them. But I had a Stomp. I had the bigger Stomp, the longer one. And while I thought the Stomp was really cool, it had one issue that I couldn't get past. It had this very weird tone suck thing going on. If you plug directly into the Stomp and straight into like a Fender style amp, it colors your tone a lot. It has a weird effect on your tone. It kills the sparkle that you get from a Fender amp. It's like plugging into, 6 pedals at once and, dealing with the buffers and whatnot. And that's the stuff that used to drive me crazy, like having to have a buffer or a tuner uses a buffer. And, yes. You still got to, here's the thing with an HXFX, with these units. I'm sure the Fractal works the same way, and Line 6 and Helix, and probably the Quad Cortex as well. The thing about these units is I feel like you need to have knowledge of how pedals work to really understand these units. Like, these units are designed and made by people who know real pedals and know real amps. So it helps for you to have knowledge of dealing with that stuff. Because if you just sit down straight with like a Line 6 Helix, it is just so much to take in that your brain just kind of melts. You're just like, this is way too much. It's just too much to deal with. And it takes a while for you to get used to it. But once you figure out the flow of it and how it works, they're really simple to use. They're very intuitive. Like the design of it is very intuitive. Like if it kind of comes natural to you once you start messing with it. You go, okay, this does this does this. Oh, this must do this and this. Like, you almost don't need a manual. The manual helps for some of the deeper dive features. Maybe like the like some of the EQ stuff, like the global EQ and stuff, and some of the internal settings that you might want to mess with, like the pad, like an input pad or something like that. You got to go into the deeper settings to find that stuff. But on the surface, especially with the HX effects now, I love that it's just a 6-pedal. It's a 6-pedal pedal board, 100%. You just take your, you program in whatever pedals you want to use, and there they are. And they work an awful lot like the real analog pedals. I can tell you, I've been using a tube screamer in it, and I was using the SD1 and stuff like that. And the chorus effect, I mean, honestly, there are people that love their Strymon stuff and all that. And that's awesome. That's great. If you love that stuff, that's awesome. But I feel like this HX effects is just like, it takes all that stuff and gives you a pretty good version of all that stuff. It's very close. Sounds really good. And you don't need to have multiple units. It's all in one. And the thing about it is since you've got 128 programmable banks in it, that's 128 pedal boards at your feet that you can select through. I mean, I don't think anyone needs 128 pedal boards, but you could have like 4 or 5 of them in there. Some people like do it by song if they're playing sets. Each song has its own pedal board, and you can have different effects for each song. I mean, that's probably how I would do it. I would probably just do it like maybe like a couple different pedal boards and just know which ones work for which song. Although it's very easy to label. Because HX effects, unlike the Helix LT, it has the scribble strips, so you can label what you're doing. Like you can label it, so when you look down, you can see, okay, this is my tube screamer, this is my compressor, this is my chorus. It's all there, and and I've run it in the effects loop of my Katana Artist. I've run it on the front of it. I actually wasn't using it in the front because the built-in boosts on the Katana Artist are actually really good as far as I'm concerned. But I found that on the Brown channel, the tube screamer that's in the HX effects works very much. Sounds almost identical to, it's like a TS-808. And there's also an SD1 in there too. It's called like the Stuper OD, I think. It sounds almost like the real deal, like through this amp. And honestly, I think it sounds a little cleaner because a real analog pedal plugged into the front end of this amp would kill some of your signal. You'd get you'd get a little bit of like tone suck out of it, for lack of a better description. And with this, it slightly colors your sound a little bit. Like I'm talking like minutely colors your sound. I thought, like I was saying before, I think I started and I didn't finish. The HX Stomp has a bad tone suck to it. I didn't like the tone suck from the You would literally have to put like a buffer before the HX Stomp to kind of bring your tone back, which to me kind of defeated the purpose. It was supposed to be an all-in-one unit. And I never had that problem with the Helix LT. For whatever reason, the Helix LT did not. Like it slightly altered your tone, but not in a bad way. It didn't like kill like your Fender Sparkle or anything. Like honestly, you could plug into it and you would never notice the difference. So that's how I'm feeling with the HX Stomp. The HX Effects is, it's really cool. It doesn't color your sound that much to the point where I even notice it. Like if I plug it into an amp, I could just leave it plugged in all the time. And I mean, I don't want to unplug it and plug straight into the amp. Like I don't feel like I'm missing anything. If anything, I'm gaining, not missing. And there are EQs built into it that you can actually bring some of that high end back if you feel you've lost a lot of it. But honestly, with the HX effects, I don't feel like I've lost. It doesn't, to my ears, doesn't sound like I've really lost anything. But with the Stomp, it did. The Stomp it sounded like it was like Tone Suck City. Like, I don't know, it killed my tone, especially for recording and whatnot. It did not sound that great to me. The Stomp sounded bad. It didn't sound as good as the full Helix. Even though technically it's supposed to be like a small Helix, it didn't, the output quality of it didn't sound as good. It just didn't have that, I don't know, it just wasn't as good sounding. That might have had something to do with the fact that I think with the regular Helix, you would output XLR out, but with this, it doesn't have XLR out on the HXFX either. It doesn't have XLR out. So yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling on and on, but I really like it. And for me right now, I don't see the need for anything more than what's in that pedal. Like, I don't need any more effects than what's in that pedal. And it does what effects that I want to use, even the overdrives, really good. Like, just as good as I would need them to be. So, yeah. It's weird that I'm a guitar pedal channel. I'm a guitar and gear reviewer. Do that stuff as a YouTube channel. And I'm basically saying that I don't intend to buy any more pedals. But, I mean, I don't know. I'll find ways to make content with this thing. But, and who knows, maybe I'll find something that's cool that I actually want to try out or whatnot. But right now, I don't need any more pedals. Right now, this is it. Like, I ordered an expression pedal to use with it. This is an expression pedal. I don't see the need for any more effects. I never use more than 5 or 6 pedals anyway. Sorry, just having a drink of water. But yeah, so yeah, that's awesome, and I am definitely a fan of that, of the HXFX. And I feel like even the cork sniffers out there, even amongst you all, I think even you, under certain circumstances, would see the value in it and go, "Hey, this thing's pretty awesome. It's pretty cool." And if you don't want I don't want the amp models. I don't need all the amp models because it just complicates things. It just adds more to it. I just want to, I want a pedal board. I want to plug a pedal board into my amp. I like the way the Katana sounds. I like the way the Fender sounds. Those are the tones I've found over time that I am a fan of, the Marshall, a Plexi-esque type tone from a Marshall, a little bit of JCM 800. I like that too. And I am a fan of classic Fender amps, like the clean Fender amps. That's what I like. That's like, to me, I can cover all grounds of the type of music that I like to play or I would play on a guitar with those style of amps. And the Katana covers essentially the Marshall end of it pretty good. Like, I mean, yeah, if you put a real Marshall in front of it, it probably doesn't sound as good. It doesn't have as much of that kerrang and that attack as a real Marshall has, but it has its own thing going on. It's not like it doesn't sound like a Marshall. Like, it's not like it sounds like it's trying to be 100% a Marshall and not quite getting there. It sounds like it's got that flavor, but it has its own sound. And I like the sound that I'm getting out of it. So much so that I'm questioning whether or not I'm even going to bother getting a Gen 3 head, because now Katana, the artists, they're in the Gen 3, Generation 3. Instead of calling it Mach 3, they called it Gen 3, because Mach 2 was the last. It was Mach 1, Mach 2, now Gen 3. But I guess they called it Gen 3 because it's supposedly like a bigger shift. But I got to tell you, I watched a couple videos, and I've been really, really interested in this because I really want to know what the artist head sounds like. Because they changed the characteristics of the amps. And to me, they made them better. But I liked the way they sounded anyway. I was happy. I was very happy with the way that the amp sounded anyway. So if by better it makes the amp sound better, that they really do sound better, then that's great. But if it just sounds different, I don't know, because I like what I have. Like, I'm happy. I finally found something that I liked and that I was happy with, that I could get the kind of tones that I wanted to get out of. And for me personally, I kind of judge it by my music, okay? If I can play the songs that I've recorded, my music over the years, And to be honest with you, I used a lot of direct tones, a lot of like effects boxes and direct tones and recordings, like a digital recording studio to get my guitar sounds for a lot of my other stuff. Not too much of it was mic'd from an amp. Most of it was direct effects, either via the Helix LT, which I did use for pretty much all the stuff that's on my For God's Sakes You Can I Can Do It Tomorrow album. That utilized the Helix a lot. That's when I had the Helix LT. So the guitar tones you hear on that album are mostly direct from the Helix. Prior to that, I had a Korg D1600 recorder that had built-in Korg effects, and it had amp models and distortions, and I used a lot of that. And I also did, I've recorded some stuff with a small Fender tube champ that my wife had. It actually sounded really good, like just mic'd up. It sounded awesome. To get like a rock sound, that I did some stuff with that. Like I had a Passing Time and that kind of stuff. That was recorded using that amp, and I did we did a project called the Tom Harding Barbecue, me and my friend Peter Lambert, many years back, and it was like 2000. Actually, it was 2000, and I recorded like pretty much all the guitar for that through a cassette 4-track with just hanging a mic in front of a Fender Champ and cranking it up. And it just sounded really good. It recorded so well. It like the sound that came out of it, it's just a great kick butt, like tube rock and roll sound. So, but I can get that kind of sound now from the stuff that I have, even though it's digital. I can get very close to that sound. I haven't been able to get the sound from that Tom Harding Barbecue album, which you can check out, is on my stuff here if you go looking for it. It's on Bandcamp as well. It's all free. As of right now, it's free. I may have to start charging at some point, but right now my music is free. Because I'm looking into like DistroKid and stuff like that to try to get my music on Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff, and I'm not sure how that's going to work. So, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to do that yet. But yes, but for now, all my music is free. You can listen to that. It's on Roadkill. It's on Roadcamp Records at Bandcamp.com, and you can find it for download. Full high quality version of it, and it sounds great. I mean, I haven't been able to get that sound for years, and I can get very close to it with the Katana Artist. I can get it so close that like literally it'd be a good way to play it live if I wanted to play those songs live, which we may be. And I don't want to talk too much about it, but my good friend Peter, he lived in Chicago with me for quite a few years. He's lived in New York for a while now. He's moving back into the area, and we're in talks of getting our old band, Nerdy Warts. Well, we've never broken up. Nerdy Warts is me and Peter. And we recorded a lot of music as this thing called Nerdy Warts. And it was kind of a Ween-esque type project. It was like the band Ween. Around the time that Ween became popular, or like back and stuff like that, and we weren't copying them, we were just doing that same stuff around the time they were doing the same stuff. And for years, we just kind of developed on it. And he really wants to do some live shows, get a band together and do some live shows. We might be doing that. And we're going to mix some other stuff, like the Tom Harding Barbecue. We did something called the Society Party. We're going to kind of have our live show encompass all of those eras. So this is all in the talking stage right now, so we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But I got the gear for it now, and I can do it. And I'm definitely willing to and want to do it. So that might be something for the future. But yeah, I'm getting sidetracked here. I'm getting off track. How much? Oh, 38 minutes. Okay. I'm getting very sidetracked here. But yeah, I'm happy with the Katana the way it is. Basically, is what it's coming down to. As I'm not sure if I even want the Gen 3, because if it changes the characteristic tone of the amp too much, yeah. And like I said, I saw a video where a guy compared. He compared the one, I think it was a 100 Gen 3, the standard model, with the 100 Mach 2. And he compared them, their direct sounds, and he compared them, through the speakers and whatnot. And what I noticed is that and he pointed it out as well, is that the Gen 3 sounded thinner. It wasn't as thick sounding. Now, maybe this is wrong. I mean, I haven't played one, so maybe it's wrong. But it was like there was less bass. And I thought it was the other way around. I thought there was more bass in it. And the actual output, the line output signal, was considerably lower for both. Plus, he pointed out one thing that I don't know if this is really true. And if anybody listens to this and you know, please leave a comment in the comments and let me know, because I'm actually very, very curious about this. He said the panel, like as in with most Katana amps, like the one that I have, you can put it on panel and you can just use it like a regular amp. That's how I use it. I don't think I've ever programmed a preset into it. I always just turn the knobs on the front and just get a sound and play. And that's what I do. Use pedals with it or whatnot. And he said, and then you could just change the amps. You can just go from like clean to crunch to whatever, and your settings stay the same if you're on panel. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't erase what you have set up. But what this guy was saying is that at least through the software, if you did that, it would reset each channel. So you would actually have to save them from the panel to a preset so that you wouldn't lose whatever you set up. And he said when you shut it off and turned it back on, it didn't remember the settings from before. So I don't know if that's the case. But if that's the case, that's a major thing. That's a big, like, almost like complete deal breaker for me, regardless of how good it sounds. Because I use the panel exclusively. And if I can't use the panel to just control, like, you know, set up my sound, control it, shut the amp off, turn it back on, and it stays the same. Or if I want to click over to like the crunch channel or something, like, and I don't want to change my, you know, my bass and my treble settings and on my present settings and all that. Just try to keep them all the same. Because I've noticed there is a consistency in the settings. You can set them up and then just go through each amp. And at least with the artist through the 212, it stays. There's not that big of a difference between each amp to the point where you have to re-EQ the whole thing. You can go from one amp to the next, and it's smooth, and the volume level's about the same. But that really kind of sucks if that feature is gone in the Gen 3. So I don't know if this is true or not. And if this is true, if somebody can let me know, I would appreciate it. Like I said, please leave it in the comments if you do know about this, because I really would like to know this. If it's still the same and it still works the same, then it doesn't change anything. Then it's just, if it sounds better, maybe I would go for the Gen 3. But as of right now, you can't even get ahead. The artist combo amps are starting to pop up, like the actual 112 combo are starting to get out there, but the heads themselves aren't even available yet. I mean, they're still. I guess Guitar Center was saying that you might not be able to get one until like October. So yeah. So as of right now, the Mach 2 head that I have is all that exists and is all that you can get, and it's the highest version of the Katana heads that you can buy, and I always thought that I mean, a lot of people have said if you had the regular 100-watt head and you had the artist, that they essentially, through a speaker, that they sounded the same. It's just the artist had more onboard features on the actual panel than a regular 100-watt head. So if that's the case, if that's how they work, and the artist really doesn't sound any different than the regular 100-watt models. So then the 100-watt head that exists right now for the Gen 3 should be comparable. You should be able to compare that to the artist head, and you'll be able to see what the differences are. And I watched a comparison where somebody did that, and to my ears, the Mach 2 sounded better than the Gen 3. The Gen 3 was thinner. It like had no bass. It was weaker sounding. It's like you could probably crank in more bass, but there wasn't a lot of bass. It was it's like they thinned out the sound a little bit more, maybe to get it to sound more Marshall-y, and to get, because maybe people complaining there was too much bass, so they brought the bass back a little bit when they redesigned it. But to be honest with you, all you got to do is dial out the bass. I like the fact that the bass is there if you want it. And I like the beefiness of it. I think that's characteristic to its sound. That keeps it from being just a Marshall clone. because it's got more bass. I mean, anyone's ever played through a Marshall, like a JCM 800 or something like that, certain ones at least, like the late 70s, early 80s style models, they got no bass. You got to crank that bass like all the way up to get some bass out of that thing. Maybe the 100-watt ones are a little different, but when you get to like 50 and even specifically the 20-watt ones that they've done, like the studio ones, those JCM, that's the thin, man. They got punch, but they have like no bass, if that makes any sense. You have to like crank that bass knob like all the way up to get any like real bass out of the amp. So, I mean, that's a Marshall thing. Except for like the early Plexi style amps, those did have bass because those were kind of like a little bit designed to be more like the Fender Bassman. You know, it's sort of a copy of the Fender Bassman, really. That's a whole other scenario. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what to make of this, and I guess I won't know until there are more of these out in the wild and I can actually see it for myself and decide whether I even need to upgrade. Because the general consensus right now is if you have the Mach 2, you, especially like an artist head, you probably don't need the Gen 3. Unless you need some of the features that are added to it, like the Bluetooth and stuff like that, which is not just straight up Bluetooth. It's like you have to add a little dongle thing to the back of it. You got to plug it in and everything. It's like, which cost an extra $60. It's not just like it's built into the amp or anything like that. It's separate from the amp. So I don't know. Yeah, that's what's going on with that. But all right. So we've been talking for a while just on randomness. I think what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over to, we'll do comments. I kind of like getting into a habit now. I've kind of developed a little bit of a, I guess you could say a little bit of a structure to this podcast, this being the third episode that I've done so far of this specific Into the Loop podcast that I'm doing for the Effects Loop channel. I get a bit of a structure. You know, I start with guitar news, then I just kind of go off randomly. And then I usually end with the comments. I've been ending with the comments, and it's a pretty good structure. And I think I'm going to, actually keep up with that structure. Sorry, got a little sidetracked there. All right, so I'm going to my Effects Loop section here, and I'm going to the YouTube studio, and I am going to my comments. Let's see what we got for new comments here. All right, cool. There's some questions here, so I can actually answer these questions live instead of via, the thing. But anyway, this guy, okay, so he's commenting on my Epiphone /J45, the unboxing fail videos, this crazy videos about how I just kept getting bad J45s and whatnot. He writes, this is William Lanier 9. This is pretty fresh, 6 hours ago. So he wrote this today. He just wanted to ask you if you prefer the Epiphone /model J45 over the regular Epiphone inspired by Gibson J45. I'm gonna expand on this because this is a good question, and I had both, so I can actually give you an honest opinion on what. I did prefer the / model. I thought the / model, however, sounded a little different. It had, and this is an acoustic guitar, J45. It was a little less woody. It was a little brighter sounding. Didn't sound as woody as the straight up inspired by Gibson J45. But I got to tell you, the regular, the bog standard inspired by Gibson J45 that you can get for like $7.99, I think, around $800. That guitar sounded beautiful. Like, I loved the way that guitar, the one that I had a ding in it, had like a dent in it. So it was just bugging me. So I returned it because I wanted to hop up to the / model, which turned into a nightmare for me. And I ended up at the end with the Hummingbird, which is a great guitar, but it is a different sounding acoustic guitar than the J45. The J45 has that really down home kind of woody country thing going on, which I really liked the tone of that guitar. I thought that one sounded great. It was woody. It had a nice tone to it. Not super loud, but it has a nice tone. Anyway, but yeah, the Slash model is much brighter. It's a lot brighter, and it's a bit more modern sounding, I guess you could say. Like, I don't know. I feel like the Slash model feels a little like when you hold it in your hand and play it, it feels a little more robust. Like, I don't know, it's heavier. It's just feels like more guitar, you know? It's Slash's neck. He's this big, thick, like V-neck thing going on it. And it's very like, yeah, I don't really know how to describe it any other way. The neck is just, it's this weird V shape, but it's actually very comfortable to play once you start playing and you get used to it. And it's a solid neck, man. There's like a baseball in that neck. But I did actually, I don't know if I preferred the Slash model over the Inspired by Gibson. They were a little different. And if you really like that woody, to be honest with you, I could have just kept the Inspired by Gibson, would have been happy with it. I think the pickup in the Slash model was better. It's better than the pickup that's in the Inspired by Gibson. Because I can't remember the names of them now. It's been a while since I've dealt with this stuff. I kind of like, I went through the whole acoustic guitar thing and then shut my brain off to it, you know, because it was just like a pain in the butt straight across the board. But the Epiphone Slash J45 is awesome if you can get a good one, because I got to tell you, finding one that doesn't have problems for me, was impossible. I could not find one that wouldn't have problems. And he responded to he's like, damn, I would be pissed. That's why I hate ordering online sometimes. Yeah, me too. I would have loved to pick one up in a store and just check it out and make sure everything's fine. That's why I ended up with the Hummingbird at the end, because the Hummingbird was one that I literally, I unboxed at the store. I checked it out. I brought it home. Then I returned it because I wanted to go for the Slash J45 model because I found a good deal on one of those. But then I ended up going back and getting the one that I returned in the end. I mean, but I literally got a full refund for it when I returned it. So I just went back and bought it back again. But, yeah. I mean, other than something I'm noticing with these, that I've noticed with these Epiphones, is for some reason the nut channel is not cut very straight. It's like the headstock is crooked on a lot of them. So they're compensating with the nut channel for the head slot because it's a little bit off. So the same thing with the Hummingbird that I have is like that as well. But the nut on the Hummingbird was way better, and it's cut perfectly. And actually, I adjusted it myself with the nut files that I have, and it is perfect. So there's no problems there. There's no buzzing, no weirdness, no nothing. The last Slash J45 I had, I mean, the nut was a mess. It was crooked. The nut had been like, oh God, it had been filed down as far as it could go. It was a mess. But if you could get a good one, that Slash model was awesome. If you can find a good one. If you can get a good one. I don't know if you can, but if you can get a good one, the Slash model was awesome. But I really love just the straight up Inspired by Gibson one too. If you want that classic woody 70s acoustic sound, it's there in spades. That's what that guitar sounds like. And it's good enough. If you want something a little more modern, then the Slash one is a little more modern sounding. I think that's the best way to describe them, the two of them. So I hope that helps, William Lanier. I will actually respond to your thing as well, but if he doesn't listen to this podcast, but okay. So was another, let's see, the reason that sounds muddy on the lower power setting because you're not driving the speaker is optimal. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So this guy's talking about, I have Fender Deluxe Reverb Tone Master when I had the Deluxe Reverb Tone Master. I have the Princeton now, and I love the Princeton. I had made tips and tricks video, which I was just showing off, certain things that you could do with it that I found that it works. This guy's name is Mick Brenton. Okay. And this was like 12 hours ago. And he wrote, the reason that it sounds muddy on the lowest power setting, he's talking about the Fender Deluxe Reverb Tone Master. is because you're not driving the speaker at its optimal level. That makes sense. A 10-inch speaker would tighten up the lower volume fidelity. I found that a modest tweak up on the treble helps. Okay, interesting. So that's probably why the Princeton speaks to me so well, because when I play it at a lower volume, it doesn't sound that bad at a low volume. Like he's saying, and there's a 10-inch speaker in that, and it tightens up the lower volume fidelity. So with the deluxe reverb, since you're dealing with a 12-inch speaker, it's at lower volumes, it's going to be a little muddier and a little wonkier sounding, basically. This is basically what this guy's saying. Well, thank you. That's an interesting point, Mick Brenton. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. He commented on my video. It says Fender Deluxe Reverb Tone Master, not another Tone Master. And he wrote Goldilocks and the Three Bears for Fender Reverb fans. Okay. Anthony Olson 3079. I don't know what that means. I'd have to watch the video. Maybe I said something in there that kind of made that make sense. This guy's talking about his ES335. Says thanks. I have one also. The awesome guitar. The ES335 Pro was like the Guitar Center special Epiphone model that came out in 2019, I think. This is cool. Oh, this is cool. We were just talking about the Greta Van Fleet concert at Mohegan Sun Arena, and this guy responded. Oh, this is a nice long one. I'm going to read this whole comment. This is from a guy named Dan Pettipaws? It's weird. Dan Pettipaws. 3 days ago. He responded to my Greta Van Fleet video that I put up, basically. Which, if anybody's watched it, I mean, the camera footage is terrible. It really isn't that great. I did the best that I could with it to get it to look as good. I'm really kind of surprised that my wife's camera usually takes, her phone usually takes really good photographs. I'm really surprised that the camera looked as bad as it did. But, hey, it is what it is. But he writes, yes, Mohegan Sun Arena is an excellent place to see a concert. Just the past couple of months, he's seen George Thorogood, John Fogerty, Roger Daltrey, Brad Paisley. Wow, goes to a lot of concerts. Elvis Costello, Daryl Hall, Counting Crows, Cheap Trick, and others have played there. And the free Wolf Den Lounge on weekends features a lot of up-and-coming acts, local bands, as well as other groups that don't have as large following. If you're a gambler, you get free tickets to all the concerts. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. You get free tickets to all the concerts. That's kind of neat. He writes, I was at the Greta Van Fleet concert, and actually the sound levels there were pretty tolerable. There are bands that exceed listenable levels like Shinedown and the heavy metal shows. What Greta was doing was using heavy compression to make things sound louder, and it results in ear fatigue as every note is pushed to 100%. Unfortunately, most bands are using too much compression. I felt Greta was using it to excess, as well as adding echo and verb to the vocals. I couldn't understand the lyrics to any of the songs. Yeah, actually, I could hear it pretty better with the earplugs in. But yeah, I'm just commenting on what he said now. But he's right though. That the compression makes a lot of sense because when the bass would get super boomy, everything would just like boom, like crunch up. It was that compression that you could hear it. So he also writes, I didn't understand the comparisons to Led Zeppelin I had read about either. I thought they sounded like the group Yes. Interesting. Josh Kiska has an incredible voice, but he doesn't sing clearly and isn't disciplined in using it. The rest of the band is clearly talented, but they're not disciplined, and they're all over the place musically. I think they're pretty talented. I mean, obviously he thinks they're talented as well. I don't know about discipline. They are kind of all over the place, but I think that's their thing too. And they could use some songwriting lessons. As for the flame cannons, I guess I just seen them used by bands too many times. They're more annoying than dramatic. You can feel the heat from those things. When those things go off, we were like up in the boonies, and when the freaking flame cannons went up, you could actually feel the heat from where we were sitting. I'm like, if you were in the front row, it's almost like a sunburn. It's kind of crazy. He wrote, my wife and I usually stay to the very end of every concert, especially since we've seen some great encores from artists. But we had enough of Greta and left either during the last song or the second to last song. We just had enough. We found the Beaches to be more accessible and more enjoying. I really liked the Beaches. The Beaches were awesome. I didn't know that band, the Beaches, has been around for like 7 or 8 years. They've seemed to have gone through some lineup changes too. And their earlier stuff is different. It's more pop. Like now the stuff that they're doing is almost like The Cure. It's kind of cool. My wife did hear that some Greta fans were disappointed with the band. They said the sound wasn't good and they've been better in the past. Honestly, I thought the show was really good. I was actually pretty excited about it. Anyway, I hope you will make it out to Mohegan Sun again. It's an excellent place to see a concert, and for a small arena, they get acts that usually play larger venues. On recent tours by Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, and Bruce Springsteen, it's been the smallest venues those artists played. Most artists comment on how well the casino treats them. I think that's what it is. The artists like, going to the casino, and the casino probably treats them very, very well. They probably get really nice rooms, and it's a casino, it's like going to Vegas, so I'm sure that it has a lot to do with it. A lot to do with it. Okay. What do I got here? Oh, I'm at like an hour, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here, but I'll do a couple more comments here. We got Pete Elson 5656 writes, great video. He's commenting on the Fender Deluxe Reverb Tone Master video. A lot of actual useful info. Tired of videos that come across as commercials. This isn't that, and that is good. Thanks. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that a lot because, well, it's hard to not sound like a commercial sometimes when you're just talking about something. I mean, it's kind of hard to not sound like a commercial. And I almost don't want to. I got to get away from the fact that a lot of people who watch my channel feel like everything that I review or guitars that I have all this stuff. Because to be honest with you, a lot of stuff I reviewed I don't have anymore. If it's a pedal, it's all gone. It doesn't change the fact of how I felt at the time I made those videos. I still stand by what I said. It's just I've moved on to different things for my own personal, reasons. And one guy writes, Creepy Cat writes, look at you with every single Katana model in your room. At one point, I did have like almost every single Katana model. I don't anymore at this point. I literally just have the one, but with the head and cap. But yeah, I kind of became a fanboy there for a while. But I really like, I don't know. I appreciate everybody who's been watching my videos and people have been commenting. And I got to be honest, I don't get a lot of bad comments. I very rarely get stuff that's like slandery or mean, or I have a pretty good group of people who are commenting and watching my videos regularly, which is awesome. So thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it. I mean, I want to do this, I really want to make this work. I mean, for years now, my thing has been recording music and making like independent films and short films and stuff like that. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. And I'm always dealing with a very small audience. And sometimes it gets a little bit like you lose the ambition a little bit. You get a little, you just lose it because like, you put so much effort into things and like 10 people see it. And sometimes it doesn't feel like the response is worth the effort. And I mean, my movies are up on, I had this streaming service called Reveal. I actually put my movies up on it, which is awesome, which means that if you have a Roku device and you look at the Reveal app, My Film Hometown and You Better Watch Out, they're both on there. You can watch them, which is really cool. I really got to kind of look into that a little bit more because I think there's more stuff that I can do with it. I'm not making any money off of it, but they're out there, which I think is awesome. But I mean, that just kind of came about. Somebody came to me. I guess I think they were looking for films, to be honest with you. I don't think they really knew what my movies were. They just were. They knew I was a local filmmaker and they were looking for films. So I think that's why I ended up on those platforms. But I just it can be really it can be a knockdown sometimes. You just don't really feel like doing it all the time. And YouTube's no different. I mean, you can bust your butt making videos and then like you get like 10 views. And I mean, I don't get a lot of views. I have some videos that have gotten some pretty good views. And it's usually just the stuff where it's like it seems like an ad for like a product. But I try to do it from my perspective. I try to make my videos from my perspective. I don't really script anything. Like maybe I should probably make my videos better. But I have a few ideas. I go into it dry and I off the cuff it. And then if I'm going to do some, examples of me playing, I'll shoot that stuff separately. I'll just play and goof off for a little while. Then I usually do that either first. It depends. Sometimes I do that first and then I'll sit down and do the talk part. And sometimes I'll do it after I've done the talking part. I usually just sit down and talk. And I was trying to make the videos really flashy in the beginning. Weird cuts and zoom ins and stuff like that. And I've actually calmed down a lot on that because I feel like it's not necessary. As long as you got a nice clear shot and it's a good shot and the audio is decent, people are okay with that. They'll just listen to you talk. It's become more acceptable just to like watch a talking head on YouTube than even when I started a couple years back. Everybody was pushing like you had to have like super flashy cuts, and I was trying to incorporate some of that into my thing, but that's not me. Even with my films, when I edited the movies, both of my movies, I'm a very classic. Like I like to use effects that could be used on film. That's the way I look at it. Like fades, wipes. Like if you could do it with real film, I'll use that effect. I don't like to use all these digital effects all the time because I think they look just silly, and they just I don't know. It's just too flashy and too weird, and it dates you. And it's just I like a nice classic basic like documentary style. Photographs, swipes, pushes, fades, that kind of stuff, straight cuts. Yeah, that's just my style. That's just the way I've always edited, and it's the way I've always filmed. And honestly, I don't think most of the stuff that I edit and film for YouTube is that crazy looking. I mean, it's pretty basic looking for the most part. Because when you're making something every week, you can't spend that much time on it. You just, especially if you have a life outside of it, you just can't. Maybe when this becomes more of a job for me, if it ever gets to that point, then fine. I mean, I've been monetized now. I'm still waiting on my first payment from YouTube. Just to let people know how this actually works. I've been monetized for a couple months now. YouTube won't pay you until you hit $100. Once you hit $100 and you get a payment, that's like their cap. And as of right now, I'm at like $70, and it's just from ads in my videos, ad revenue. And I'm not like filling my video. I don't think I'm filling my video with ads. I'm just literally clicking all the default things on everything and just letting it run. I mean, I eventually kind of want to do like, live streams and stuff like that. But I mean, you need to have more of an audience for that. So I think for now, the podcast is good. It's a little bit something extra. And I might try a Patreon thing. I don't know if anyone would be interested in that. I have to find some perks, from some ways to create some perks for a Patreon. Something that you can't get through the main channel that you can only get if you're a Patreon supporter. Because I want to keep doing this. I really do want to keep doing this. And yeah. So anyway, here I am rambling on and on about, my nonsense. But just to let you know, it takes a while to get here. It's not an easy thing to do. And you really have to devote a lot of your time to it. I mean, I will devote as much time as I can. That's the way it works for me. I only have so much time. Like right now, my wife and daughter went to the beach and I stayed home so I could record a podcast. It gives me time to sit down and do this, because otherwise there isn't an hour's worth of silence in this house that I can deal with in this apartment. So anyway, you know what? I think we're going to call it quits. I think that's a good place to end it on. And, yeah, thanks everybody for checking out. Anyone who's listening to this, I appreciate you. It's awesome. Keep listening, 'cause I'll keep doing it. I like doing this. I like the podcasts. I really like doing podcasts because it's just off the cuff and you can just kind of sit and just go, I put a few topics on a piece of paper and I just kind of go to town and talk about it. I like that. But, yeah. So if you like my stuff, please check out my videos. I'm still going to try to do some SFX loop stuff that has to do with media and movies and stuff like that. I just haven't really had anything to talk about lately. I might have something I might want to make a video on soon. Just as far as that stuff is concerned, I've been more into the guitar stuff lately. Kind of go back and forth, But yeah, so if you like this, please like, subscribe, comment on my videos. That helps a lot. Apparently liking the video helps a lot. I do want subscribers too, though, so that's awesome. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And I'm going to keep trying to do this stuff and yeah, trying to make it as personal and as entertaining as humanly possible when it comes to the subject matter. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. See you or talk to you next time. Whatever you do, watch a video or listen to the podcast. So, all right. Thanks. I'm Jay Byrne. Take care.